And I'm going to start off by just mentioning that the Guardians of Martin County are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. What that means is we are educational. We can't do very much in the way of advocacy. Our role is to provide information so that our followers and people know what's going on. So often that means we're the bearer of bad news, and I guess you've heard some of that tonight. And I'm afraid I'm going to finish with also some kind of bad news. You have heard a number of acronyms tonight. And so I'm going to go back to our role as educators, and I'm going to try to translate some of those that may have slipped by it. We heard from Commissioner Cap, CPAs. Anybody remember? Comp plan amendments. We also heard from Merit a couple of acronyms that slipped by. CERP, Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program or Plan. We also heard BOCC, Board of County Commissioners. And from Jessica, I just wrote down a couple of the acronyms that she used. Flew right off of her tongue like she said it 1,000 times. She talked about NEPA, National Environmental Policy Act. She also said EIS, Environmental Impact Statement. And finally, WMAs. She talks about them all the time, but many of you may not know that they're wildlife management areas. So I'm going to introduce to you in my 9 slides a new acronym, and that is a LULU. Anybody know what LULUs are? Huh? Oh, you haven't been around growth management very long. They are locally unpopular land uses. And that's what I'm going to talk about. Who would have thought that we would have a slaughterhouse proposed in Martin County? And not only a slaughterhouse, what we have heard could be the largest slaughterhouse east of the Mississippi River. So we're trying to spread some education about this. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of facts that are available to us. But I'm going to talk about the Shanty Bay Land Project, what's being proposed that we've been able to find out, and who, if anyone, is watching. So first, where is Shanty Bay Ranch? As many of you may know, Martin County's down would go right out in the middle of Lake Okeechobee. And so the advocacy and the roles education work that we do is on behalf of clean water. And that's really what brings this project to us today. So it's up in the northwestern part of Martin County. You see they're not quite on the shore, but on the east side of Route 98 there. On an aerial side view, this is where the 2,000-acre ranch is in northwestern Martin County, right near the Okeechobee County boundary. It's mapped this was actually the debate from PC Palm, and they were sharing with everybody the results of a water quality problem, or the algae in the lake was toxic back in the summer. So that little blue dot down toward the bottom, where water from Lake Okeechobee comes through the C44 or St. Canal into the Zigazig River. So the Department of Health water quality warning there. So a little bit closer up about what's going on. I mentioned northwestern Martin County. It's on the east side of Lake Okeechobee, east of the Hoover Dike, and mostly east of Route 98 or 441. And a key issue for us is that it is within the Lake Okeechobee watershed. And for those of you who don't know, that one a number of years ago was designated as impaired. That's why it's got these water advisories for toxic algae and that sort of thing. So the slaughterhouse is that kind of brown dot or rectangle that I've got up there in the top, but it's part of the overall ranch. It's about 2,100 acres in size. What's being proposed at the site, it has been very difficult for us to find out. We've been working with the county, and kind of the situation is that they submitted an application into Martin County for review for this facility back quite a while ago. Martin County didn't like what they saw, but they said, okay, if this is coming in, we need to have this, and this as information for us to process this application. Well, the property owner said, I don't want to go through all this, and so they have attempted an end run around Martin County.
and they have employed the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services to do that. And essentially, they have made the determination that Martin County's regulations are preempted by this Florida Right to Farm Act. So although we work collaboratively with the county on a whole bunch of things, we have a lot of respect for their professional staff. The challenge here is that if that FDAC's Attorney General's opinion stands, Martin County will not be able to kind of review the application. There's going to be no preserve area management plans, no protection of threatened and endangered species, a variety of things. So we've been trying to find out more about it, find out about the water quality and that sort of thing, and it's been hard to get factual information. We don't know how many animals are going to be brought onto the property, but what we have heard is that in the big picture, the plan is to bring in cattle from all over northern states, east of the Mississippi, bring them onto the property, raise them for a period of 90 days so that then the meat, once processed, can be sold as grass-fed beef. Now, I'm a steak eater. I like a pig burger. The Guardians aren't necessarily against this project. What we want to make sure is that if it does move forward, that there are adequate controls in there and that water quality is protected. There's not going to be traffic kinds of problems and a variety of things like that. We don't know the extent to which the water will be treated. Slaughterhouses are very big consumers of water. And so they have gotten a permit to withdraw millions of gallons of water from this artificial aquifer, and how that water is going to get treated and what happens to it, we have no idea. We don't know what the standards are for which that water will be treated and where it goes. Our suspicion is that it's going to go into the rim canal for around Lake Okeechobee, and that is one of those water bodies that is already designated as impaired. So protection of wetlands is another thing. Martin County, as many of you know, Martin County has the strongest wetland protection standards in Martin County. There are a few little ways that some developers can get through and impact wetlands, but the vast majority of wetlands are protected, and there's a buffer around those wetlands that also needs to be protected. So if FDAC's Attorney General's opinion that Martin County is preempted, we can't necessarily say that those wetlands would be protected. I've got some information here. There are bald eagles' nests on the property. Caracara have been seen on the property as well. Martin County would require that they remove the invasive species off of the property. We're not getting any indication that that's likely going to be done. And going back to the water quality situation, if they're going to bring in all these cattle and graze them on the 2,000-acre ranch, in order to increase the productivity on that ranch, they're going to need fertilizers. And so we have made a request about the information about existing fertilizer use and what is going to happen in the future. And I'm afraid we have not gotten satisfactory information. So here's a little bit more about the project overall. The meat processing facility is about proposed for 56,000 square feet of area. So that's generally about the size of a Publix. That's what would all be in the meat processing facility. So it's on 26 acres of the ranch. And so just think 26 acres. That's along the lines of about 25 football fields, the area for the meat processing facility itself. We've got a couple aerial photos here, or photos of one kind or another. The one on the left there showing one of those wetlands that's on the property right now. And all that nasty green stuff in the middle is algae bloom of some sort, likely as a result of enhanced nutrients, whether it's the cattle droppings or the runoff from the fertilizers, whatever it is. That's what stimulates those algae blooms. The picture there in the center is in the discharge of this facility where it goes down towards the Lake Okeechobee Rim Canal. So already it's vegetation in it is those species of plants that like those higher levels of nutrients, and they're an invasive species as well. So why do the Guardians care about what's going on? I mentioned they are large consumers of water. The South Florida Water Management has designated the the aquifer in Martin County as a water caution area. So a facility like this, they've already gotten their permit to withdraw this 6.8 millions of gallons of water per year for a 20-year period. They're going to be sucking up that same water that is causing our superficial aquifer to cause problems with water, saltwater intrusion, and that sort of thing. And certainly meat processing facilities overall are known to be big sources of potential pollution. I didn't know anything about slaughterhouses before we started getting into this. So as a scientist, I went out and tried to figure out what's going on with these. And we did work with one of the organizations that Jessica just talked about, the Center for Biological Diversity. They've got professionals who have looked at slaughterhouses in other areas, and they have developed this fact sheet about them. And it's in the position paper that the Guardian's Board of Directors has now adopted. It's on our website. And generally, it talks about overall, what are the problems with slaughterhouses overall? And what we then took the next step to do is analyze how each of those problem areas, whether it's water withdrawal or water quality, social justice, those kinds of things, are those relevant concerns here in Martin County and at this facility. You see the sign down there in the bottom. That was right there at the St. Lucie locks, or the Port Miaca locks, where water goes from Lake Okeechobee into the St. Lucie. And you see there are maybe toxins. You know, we see those repeated blooms of cyanobacteria. Got an aerial picture there on the left of the property just to give you an idea of the proximity. Everything in the lower portion of the photo is part of this ranch. Those round areas are wetlands or other surface waters. And then you see Route 98 in the background with the Rim Canal behind it and Lake Okeechobee. The center picture is an interesting one, and I'm going to recognize Jackie Thurlow-Lippisch, one of the river warriors, and her brother, Todd Thurlow, who has put together this website on Eye of Lake Okeechobee. So the center pictures are, I borrowed them off of his website, and what he's been able to do is look at the aerial photos of Lake Okeechobee, and then through a certain filter, able to show those toxic algae blooms. So on the right is the aerial photo as it would normally be, and in the left panel of that, where I've got the triangle showing Martin County's boundary, what you see there is the infrared version that shows those algae blooms in the lake. So our concern is that where this water is going to be flowing off of that property, coming down into the lake, then gets sucked in through the C-44, it's going to exacerbate our water quality problems, which you see in the picture on the right that I took a few years ago. That's the toxic algae bloom once it has gotten down into the South Fork of the St. Lucie River. So what are we doing? First off, because information about this is very difficult to come by, we have had to file Freedom of Information Act requests. I'm going to acknowledge our attorney, regarding his attorney back here in the back row. Wave there, Mike Durham, so everybody sees you. Whether or not we win the battle with this, I don't think it's going to be on our environmental kinds of things. It's going to be in the legal battle. And that is essentially whether or not this project meets or does not meet the Florida Right to Farm Act, an act that was passed by the legislature a number of years ago. And it was meant to keep out sort of nuisance or frivolous lawsuits against agricultural operations. We think that all of our concerns are very valid. What Mike has looked into the law about is he has, and this is in our position paper, we think that by essentially subdividing the property into the ranch and the slaughterhouse itself should be an industrial operation, not an agricultural operation that should be given protection under the Florida Right to Farm Act. So we're going to be relying on Mike heavily as we move forward with this. What other things are we doing? Certainly the Water Management District permit is something that is publicly available. So the information that they provided is what has provided kind of what little details we have about the facility overall, because again, they withdrew their application into Martin County. I mentioned the preserve area management plan that would be required if Martin County is able to go through and make sure that the project is compliant with the comp plan and the land development regulations. We're also coordinating with a variety of our non-governmental organization colleagues. We're not going to win, the Guardians aren't going to win this battle on our own. We're going to need Jessica and Eve Samples and Gil Smart and Florida Oceanographic Society, the Rivers Coalition, all these different entities who all share our concerns about water quality. We have released this position paper. It is pretty lengthy. It'll put you to sleep probably, but the Guardians board felt like it was necessary for us to go through a pretty detailed analysis of this, because we don't want our concerns about the project to just be blown off as a opposition to one of those locally unpopular land uses. So it's got a lot of citations in it and that sort of thing, and we believe that it will pass the review of various legal entities, and certainly we circulated around to these non-governmental organizations, our colleagues, and it was improved by their review of it. So we released that paper last month, and the next step of that was to go to the Martin County Commission and ask them for what likely will be the one and only public hearing about this project. If the Attorney General for the FDACS, the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, if his letter stands, Martin County would be preempted. There would be no public hearings at the state level, none at the federal level. So the only way the public is going to find out about this is based on our request to Martin County that they put it on an agenda for future discussion. So thank you, Commissioner Capps, for making the motion that set that in place. I don't know that a date has been set on that yet. I have heard possibly in January. Do you have any update on that?
I don't think it's in on January 6th, our first meeting of the year, so it must be the next one.
Okay.
Because I've seen a draft agenda for the January 6th meeting, and I don't remember that being there.
Okay, well, that's great. We will be working closely with the county, and then all of you to let you know once it does get scheduled, because we would like to fill that commission chamber with people who are interested in getting factual information about this project. So research continues. We're going to be filing another FOIA request to get additional information. So if you care about transparency and water quality, just kind of stay tuned and you'll hear from us first. Thank you.